16th question, part A is, what are the losses in a transformer? On what factors these losses depend? The losses in a practical transformer are iron losses or core loss, and the second is copper loss. So what is iron loss? Since the iron core is subject to alternating flux, there occurs eddy current and hysteresis loss in it. These two losses together are known as iron losses or core losses. Both hysteresis and eddy current losses depends upon maximum flux density Bm in the core and supply frequency F. Since transformers are connected to the constant frequency, constant voltage supply, both F and Bm are constants. Hence, core losses are practically the same at all loads. Iron or core loss Pi is equal to hysteresis loss plus eddy current loss. That is equal to a constant loss. The hysteresis loss can be minimized by using steel of high silicon content, whereas eddy current loss can be reduced by using core of thin laminations. Then what is copper loss? The primary and secondary of a transformer have winding resistances of R1 and R2 respectively. Copper losses occur in both these windings due to their ohmic resistances. Total copper loss is equal to Pc is equal to I1 square R1 plus I2 square R2, where I1 and I2 are the primary and secondary currents. It is clear that copper losses vary as the square of the load current. Total losses in a transformer is equal to P1 plus Pc, that is constant loss plus variable loss. 16th question B is, a 25 kilovolt ampere transformer has 500 turns on primary and 50 turns on the secondary windings. The primary is connected to 3000 volt 50 Hz supply. Find the full load primary and secondary currents, the secondary EMF and the maximum flux in the core. Then neglect the leakage drops and the no load primary current. So you have to find the full load primary and secondary current, then secondary EMF and maximum flux in the core. So we know that the transformation ratio K is equal to N2 divided by N1. That is equal to 50 divided by 500, 1 by 10. Then primary current I1 is equal to, we know that the kilovolt ampere 25 into 10 raised to 3 divided by the primary voltage 3000. So we will get I1 as 8.33 ampere. Then I2 is equal to I1 divided by K. That is equal to 83.3 ampere. So you got current in primary and secondary. Then next is secondary EMF. You have to find E2. So K is equal to E2 divided by E1. So E2 is equal to K into E1. That is 1 by 10 into 3000 is equal to 300 volt. Then next you have to find the maximum core flux. So E1 is equal to 4.44 Fn1 5m. 5m is the maximum flux. So 3000 is equal to 4.44 into 50 into 500 into 5m. From that equation you can find the maximum flux, which is equal to 27 milliweber. 17th question A is, obtain the relation between line and phase voltages and currents in star connected system. Star connection system is the three phases are joined together to form a common junction N called star or neutral point. So a balanced three-phase Y-connected system in which the RMS value of a EMF generated in the three phases are ERN, EYN and EBN. It is clear that the potential difference between any two line terminals, the line voltage, is the phasor difference between the potential of these terminals with respect to neutral point. So VRY is equal to ERN minus EYN. Similarly, VYB is equal to EYN minus EBN, and VBR is equal to EBN minus ERN. Then consider lines R and Y, the line voltage, Vry is equal to the phasor difference of ERN and EYN. To subtract EYN from ERN, reverse the phasor EYN and find its phasor sum with ERN as shown in the phasor diagram. Two phasors ERN and minus EYN are equal in magnitude and equal to phase and 60° apart. Vry is equal to 2E phase 60 cos 60° divided by 2. That is equal to 2E phase cos 30°. That is equal to root 3 E phase. So similarly, Vyb is equal to root 3 E phase and Vbr is equal to root 3 E phase. Hence, the balanced three-phase Y connection line voltage is equal to root 3 E phase. And relation between line and phase current is that line current IL is equal to I phase. In a balanced three-phase Y connection, line current IL is equal to I phase. 17th question B is a 220 volt three-phase voltage is applied to a balanced delta connected three-phase load of phase impedance of 15 plus J20 ohm. Find the phasor current in each line, the power consumed per phase. Draw the phasor diagram. So here R phase is equal to 15 ohm. X phase is equal to 20 ohm and EL is equal to E phase is equal to 220 volt. Then Z phase is equal to root of R phase square plus X phase square. That is equal to, you will get it as 25 ohm. Then we can find the phasor current. I phase is equal to 220 divided by total impedance in phase 25. That is equal to 8.8 ampere. Then IL is equal to root 3 I phase. So we can find IL. Then phase power consumed per phase. P phase is equal to I square R in phase. So that is equal to 8.8 all square into 15 is equal to 1161.6 watt. Then phasor diagram. So phasor sum would be 0 because the three currents are equal in magnitude and have a mutual phase difference of 120°. 18th question part A is why a single phase induction motor is not self-starting. When a single phase alternating current is supplied to a stator winding of a single phase induction motor, an alternating magnetic field is induced. Such a magnetic field acting on a stationary squirrel cage rotor cannot produce the starting torque needed for the motor. Hence, a single phase induction motor are not self-starting. So, single phase induction motor with a normal winding have no starting torque. Various methods have been developed for obtaining starting torque in these motors. Most of the methods make use of separate starting winding provided in the stator slots. Hence, according to the starting method, single phase induction motors are classified into three: split phase induction motors, capacitor start induction motor, and shaded pole induction motor. 18th question B is describe the different rotor constructions in an alternator. So synchronous machine is an AC machine in which the rotor moves at a speed which is having a constant relationship to the frequency. F is equal to Pn by 120. And a synchronous machine may be a synchronous generator or a synchronous motor. Or synchronous generator is called an alternator. And the rotor construction. The revolving field structure is called the rotor. The magnetic poles are excited by providing a DC supply from a small DC generator which is mounted on the same shaft of the alternator or from a rectifier unit. DC supply is provided through two slip rings and brushes. There are two types of rotors: salient pole type rotor and smooth cylindrical type rotor. So salient pole type rotor, this type of rotor is used for slow speed machines which have large diameters and small axial lengths. The poles are made of thick steel laminations riveted together and attached to a rotor by a dovetail joint. The non-salient or cylindrical rotor. This type of rotor is used for alternators which run at very high speeds. These rotors are made from solid forgings of alloy steel. 19th question. Describe the various non-conventional energy sources. So, non-conventional sources of energy are available free of cost, are pollution free and inexhaustible. So, example is solar power, wind power and tidal power. So, you have to write each of them in detail. 20A is explain the working principle of mercury vapor lamp. A lamp that consists of vaporized mercury to generate light by using an electric arc is known as a mercury vapor lamp. It consists of two electrodes made up of an alloy of tungsten which is placed together in a medium containing mercury vapor and 2550 torr of a pure argon gas. These electrodes are enclosed in an elliptical shaped glass tube made up of silica. And working of mercury vapor lamp is the mercury vapor and a neon gas pink in color present in a bulb requires high voltage at the starting to illuminate light. When high voltage is applied, we can observe that the neon gas, which was originally in pink color, will change into orange color by heating. It is similar to a 100-watt glowing bulb and it takes 5 to 7 minutes to turn on completely. The igniter which is present internally consists of a bimetallic strip and a capacitor which provides a high starting voltage. When the bimetallic strip expands on heating, it will short circuit, then the lamp will be turned on. When this bimetallic strip cools, it disconnects the connection and turns off the lamp. Hence, by connecting the ballast and igniter to this lamp, the mercury vapor and neon gas get heated up and expands the bulb inside to illuminate the light. Question number 20b. Explain the energy management techniques applied to a residential building. First is energy baseline. Create an energy baseline that outlines the current energy performance and helps you define a new energy strategy for further usage. Second is energy audit. Energy audits are the first step towards optimizing energy consumption. HVAC management. Heating, ventilation and air conditioning is the principal energy consumer in multi-unit residential buildings and often consumes up to a third of total electricity usage. Light management. Lighting in common areas is where significant cost savings can be done. Rewiring and insulation. Electrical rewiring is the process whereby all hazardous or non-compliant electrical equipment such as cables, distribution boards, fittings are replaced for better performance. Check the areas that need rewiring and make the change at the earliest. Renewable energy. Solar power plant we can use for generating energy for the residential uses. Use of technology. Energy consumption patterns can be significantly reduced by implementing technology into the electrical equipment in a space. Monitor and report. Once these strategies are established, create a process that will help collect, analyze and record the energy consumption.